From Washington to New Delhi, the world's phones have been buzzing with diplomacy. Trump's White House talks may have just cracked open the door to real peace between Russia and Ukraine. Putin's already agreed to meet Zelensky, and Modi's name is suddenly in the mix too. Back home, India is planning the biggest GST reset since its launch, promising cheaper essentials before Diwali. And if that wasn't enough, India and China, after years of frozen ties, are finally back at the table, hinting at a fragile but crucial thaw. Big power plays, big reforms, and maybe the first real hope for peace in years. Good morning and welcome to Top of the Morning by Mint, your smart daily briefing on what matters. From big moves in business to headlines shaping India and the world, we cut through the noise so you start your day informed and ahead. It's Tuesday, August 19th. I'm Nelson John. Let's get started. After nearly 4 years of conflict, we may have just seen the biggest diplomatic breakthrough yet in the Russia-Ukraine war, and it's being driven directly from the White House. On Monday, President Donald Trump hosted Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and a delegation of top European leaders to discuss security guarantees for Ukraine. But what happened next was the real headline. Immediately following those meetings, President Trump picked up the phone and had a 40-minute call with the Russian President, Vladimir Putin. The result? A potential face-to-face meeting between the leaders of Russia and Ukraine. According to German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who was at the White House, President Putin has agreed to meet with Zelensky, and it could happen within the next 2 weeks. President Trump confirmed the push on Truth Social, adding that after their initial meeting, he plans to host both leaders for a three-way or trilateral summit. While it's still an early step in a long process, it's the most concrete plan we've seen, bringing the two presidents to the same table to finally negotiate peace. At the White House, it was a show of unity. Donald Trump hosted 7 European leaders and NATO's chief, just hours after his one-on-one with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and the message was clear: end the war and lock in security guarantees for Ukraine. Zelensky called his meeting with Trump the best conversation so far and said Ukraine would gladly join a trilateral with Putin if it leads to peace. French President Emmanuel Macron argued a trilateral isn't enough. Europe must be a part of the table, since it's about the continent's security. NATO's Mark Rutte went even further, calling Trump's willingness to extend guarantees a breakthrough. Germany's Friedrich Merz urged a ceasefire as a precondition for further talks. Britain's Keir Starmer said it could be a historic step, praising Trump's offer of NATO-style guarantees. Italy's Giorgia Meloni stressed that peace can't hold without ironclad safeguards. Finland's Alexander Stubb reminded everyone of his country's long-fraught border with Russia, adding that more progress has been made in 2 weeks than in years. For the first time in years, Europe, the US, and Ukraine seemed aligned on the possibility of peace. On India's 79th Independence Day, the Finance Ministry dropped a big announcement: plans to simplify GST. Instead of the current 4 main slabs of 5, 12, 18 and 28%, the idea is to collapse them into just 3, 5, 18 and 40%. Here's the kicker. 99% of the items now taxed at 12% could shift down to 5%. That means groceries, medicines, dry fruits, jams, footwear, even refrigerators and washing machines could get cheaper. At the top end, most 28% goods would be moved to 18%, cutting cost on anything from furniture to electronics. The only exception here is sin goods, like tobacco and beer, which could sit in a new 40% bracket. Prime Minister Narendra Modi endorsed the move from the Red Fort and followed it up 2 days later, urging states to back the plan so it can roll out before Diwali. The draft has been circulated, and the group of ministers will study it before the GST Council takes a final call. Now, if it's approved, this could be the biggest reset of GST since its launch, aimed squarely at easing household budgets and boosting consumption. The diplomatic phone lines are buzzing this week in a global effort to end the war in Ukraine, and India is right in the middle of the conversation. On Monday, just days after a high-stakes summit with US President Donald Trump, President Vladimir Putin called India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. According to a post from PM Modi, President Putin shared insights from his recent meeting in Alaska, where Trump pushed for a full peace agreement rather than just a simple ceasefire. In the call, PM Modi reiterated India's constant position, stating that he supports all efforts for a peaceful resolution through dialogue. This crucial conversation happened just hours before President Trump was scheduled to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House to continue the peace negotiations. However, there is another layer to this complex relationship. Looming in the background are heavy U.S. tariffs. President Trump recently doubled the tariff rates on India to 50%, citing New Delhi's own high tariffs and its continued purchase of Russian oil as key reasons. It's a delicate diplomatic dance, with India carefully balancing its key partnerships as the world pushes for peace. Remember the intense border clashes between India and China in 2020? The ones that sent relations spiraling to a 6-decade low? Well, there are now signs of a significant thaw, as top diplomats from both nations meet in New Delhi this week for the first time since that standoff began. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar sat down with his Chinese counterpart, Wang, and laid out a clear path forward. He called for a candid and constructive approach, stressing that for the relationship to truly improve, peace and de-escalation along the actual line of control are non-negotiable. In his words, differences must not become disputes. This isn't just talk. The thaw has already led to concrete steps. The Kailash Manasarovar Yatra has resumed after 5 years. India is once again issuing tourist visas to Chinese nationals, and talks are underway to bring back direct flights. Wang Yi noted that their shared confidence is helping to improve relations, suggesting both nations can provide much-needed certainty and stability to Asia and the world. The real test lies ahead, as all eyes are now on a potential meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping at the upcoming SCO summit. This could be a crucial step in finally turning the page on a very difficult chapter. That's all for today. Thank you for joining in. We're eagerly looking forward to our next Top of the Morning episode, which will be packed with the latest news. Until then, this is Nelson John signing off. Have a great day.